I believe that it is necessary for us to preserve our history, our Black history, but also very important for us to tell our story to the rest of the world. So thank you so much. Thank you to you as well. Alrighty. At this moment, we will move over to our panel discussion. And so if you can help me welcome the superstars of this film, the brothers, as well as our host and moderator, who happened to also be the producer of this film, has been incredible throughout this project. So can we please welcome the brothers and our host, Caroline Sumlin.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for being here. It's just an honor to finally, now I can hear myself, an honor to finally get to this moment. We've been working on this project for over 2 years, I think. It began before the Historical Society, and it began before I came on board, when the brothers were having these weekly meetings. Carl, Lewis, Readus, and Russell, and I happened to talk with my godfather, who is Lewis right here, on the phone one day, and he told me he was working on this project and they thought it would be a book, and I had just written a book, so I guess that's why he thought he should tell me. I wasn't actually sure why he felt the need to share it with me, but I'm so glad he did. I was just like, oh, I would love to just help you in whatever way possible. I love our Minnesota State history. I'm from Minnesota. I grew up here, and I've always been very passionate about Minnesota history, especially Black Minnesota history. So I just said, can I help in any way? And he said, sure. You should I'm going to invite you to this Zoom meeting. And so before I knew it, I was in a Zoom meeting that lasted a really long time, because these guys get together and they just talk and so many memories and everything. But I just soaked up every moment and loved listening to these stories. And I said, can I interject for a second and just offer, some help here? And before I knew it, I was working with them to help take this project, and it became first a panel discussion at Moorhead State College that we did, and then we pitched it to the Historical Society, and the Historical Society said, we would love to work with you, and it turned into this beautiful documentary that I think is more than any of us could ever imagine. So I'm just honored to finally be here in this moment, 2.5 some odd years later. That being said, I have only 2 questions that I have prepared for this panel discussion, just so that we have a moment to talk about someone very near and dear to us, Russel Griffin, and we just want to share more of his story. But after that, it's your job to ask the questions, because we want this to be an open discussion. So you have a moment with these next 2 questions to write down some questions. This is your warning, okay? Because after the 2 questions, there will be no more from me. I will look at you all, and I don't want to hear crickets. I want to see hands in the air. And okay, and we're gonna pass microphones around. My only job will be to repeat what you said. So this is your warning. Write those questions down, be ready, class is in session. But to begin our panel discussion, gentlemen, we really want to talk about Carl and hear from you all who Carl was to you, first and foremost. Let's just start there. Who was Russel Griffin to you all?
Me first?
Yes, it's on you.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah, I have to ask because I'm wearing hearing aids, so everything bounces back, and I don't know. Actually, Carl, I kind of grew up with the Griffin family, as you see, and Carl was one of the older kids that that I'd come in contact or constant contact with, and had always kind of admired because of his demeanor and his behavior and the way he carried himself. And he was a teller, so I had to be careful around him because he would go back as a teller. But Carl came back to Central High School when I was a senior, and talked to Central Central graduating class about coming to Moorhead State. But then he arranged for a personal discussion with me about what my plans for college were. Of course, I was going to go ahead and go to college. And I talked to him about what I had experienced so far in terms of where I may go to college, and some of the frustrations that I was having with that, because I wanted to go outside of the Twin Cities. I wanted to go to a black university at the time. I wasn't able to do that because I just didn't have the resources to do that. And Carl talked to me about the experience that I could gain by coming to Moorhead State. Not only from the academic kind of things that were going, but the experiential thing that I would gain with the different, diverse people and situations that existed there. And he thought that that was good, and he kind of knew me, and he thought that that would be good for me to do. And I took him up on it.
I knew Carl. The neighborhood, everybody knew each other. If you didn't know somebody, they knew you. And particularly those that came before us. And there are a number of them here today that were able to tell you, this is what you need to do next, or you need to get home, or any number of things. But I remember coming out of the guidance counselor's office, and she had told me again that the railroad was my shot. And I had applied for a scholarship at Fisk University, and I got a full ride. And I showed my mother the letter, and she tore it in half, and she said, "They'll kill you down south." So she was always right. Carl was standing outside of the guidance counselor's offices like he was doing her job, and told me, "You should come on up to Moorhead. You'll do well there. It'll be a good place for you to come." And I think he showed up twice, and I knew then I was going.
Well, my family knew the Griffins very, very well because Mr. Griffin and my father worked on the railroad together. Everything seems to revolve around the railroad, and that's true. But in addition to that, Mrs. Griffin was a Cub Scout den mother, and I was a Cub Scout. And we'd go to their house to have meetings, and I'd always see Carl. And Carl and I would talk, and I always see him with his satchel full of books. And he would always tell me, "Now continue to study. You study hard. One day you're going to be going to college. I'm getting ready to go to college, and pretty soon you'll have a chance to go to college as well. So again, make sure that you prepare for that." Well, when I got into high school, Carl Griffin came to see me as well. And he said, "Lewis, you would be a good person at Moorhead State College." Well, I wasn't sure what college I wanted to go to. I kind of started eliminating schools. But in addition to that, when my father worked for the railroad, he would catch the president of Moorhead State College as well from time to time, and they would talk about Moorhead State College. My father worked as a bar car attendant on the train. President Dill liked to take the train back and forth from Minneapolis to Moorhead, and so they would talk about Moorhead. So I kept hearing this word, Moorhead, Moorhead, Moorhead. And I said, I think I better go to Moorhead. That's telling me something. And so that's exactly what we did, that we decided on me going to Moorhead. And it was easy for me to go and come because my father would provide me with passes on the railroad so I could get on the train anytime I wanted to and come home if I wanted to. And I did that for my first year in college, and that might be part of the reason why my grades were so bad. I don't know. But anyway, I started to meet friends, and that changed dramatically. I think in terms of us working with Carl on this project, I think Carl looked at us as being successful individuals. And I think that made him call us to be a part of this documentary. We went on a documentary at first because we weren't sure what it was going to be. But he organized the event, and he made it so that we found enjoyment out of it. Talking about Rondo was enjoyment for us. And as a result of that, the project was initiated.
Can you hear me? So Uncle Carl to me was, I should kind of tell like the family lineage. He is my grandfather's brother, but he's always been 15 minutes away. And he, growing up, I always felt that he was always trying to look out for me, and we were very close because, I don't know, we just got along very well on everything. And I remember when it was time for me to pick a college. And funny story is that I came to him, right? And I had two options. I had two schools in mind that I got accepted to. I got accepted at St. Cloud University, and I got accepted at Moorhead. And I was talking to my Uncle Carl because I said, I need help. I need some assistance. I want to go up there and I want to see the campus. And he didn't say anything. He just went like, I think that is a great idea. And newsflash, we did not stop at St. Cloud. We went right past St. Cloud and was Uncle Carl. I think we should, we hit it on the way back. I was like, that's a great idea. And we decided to go to Minnesota State University Moorhead, and I was on campus. And I remember the first day, and I was in love with the campus and the programs. And I think I didn't realize this, but my Uncle Carl was also having a moment as well. I mean, that was the first time he had been up there in a very long time, and I think it was a very good experience for the both of us. But even when he left, when I went to college and I moved up there, he still kept calling me, and we always had conversations, and we always had good talks. And to me, he was the voice of reason in my life, and most importantly, just someone I could turn to always.
So Carl was instrumental in bringing you all to Moorhead State College / Minnesota State University Moorhead. I'm sorry, I get the acronyms confused, you guys. I apologize.
Honestly, MSUM is
there's
like,
so
that's
many
what I
Minnesota
do.
State Universities, University of Minnesota, Minnesota University State, University of Minnesota. There's just lots of M's and U's. But he was instrumental in bringing you all to this university, and also instrumental in, as you were saying, Lewis, beginning this project. And bringing everyone back together again, you included, because when I was getting on those calls originally, you were already there, just enjoying every moment just like I was. So can you all tell us about how that conversation began with Carl when he called you and said, let's tell our stories and let's actually do something with our stories? How did he convince you all to realize that, hey, your stories are more than just great conversations, but they're history and they need to be told?
Thanks.
We don't have to go in order, but I mean, it works really well. So I might as well just always put you on the spot first.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, actually, the conversation initially started with Russell and I. We were talking about sharing our experiences, and we thought about Rondo and our experiences with the community in our lives. But then we thought, we need to get more people in this because unfortunately we had all recognized that we were getting pretty old, and there may be a situation where there might be something we can share, and we better do it in a way that it'll get past this thing called age that we were facing. We expanded that into Carl, and let's put together some type of video history of stories. And Carl had tied up with, we could tie this to this interesting kind of loop that we have here, which is that Rondo, but also I-94, which tore Rondo apart and tore our lives apart. But that same vehicle, that same highway also took us to Moorhead, you know. And how strange, what irony is that? Because it tore our community. We ended up using it to go up to Moorhead to gain our credentials, our educations, and then come back to attempt to bring some benefits back to our community. And I think we were successful. We recognized that we were successful at that, and that not only did we go up on 94 and we came back with skills and benefits, but those things also benefited the greater community, the greater states, because no matter, we talk about what we achieved individually, those also attributed to, firstly, to our community, but also to the region and also to the state. So that's how we got into this thing. Let's tie it into the Moorhead State and our attempt to do the common good.
I guess all I can add to that, can you hear it, is we went and had lunch with Carl, and we told him about this ideal. And Carl says, yes, okay, we're going to do that. And we started having these meetings through the Zoom, and none of us were very techy, so it took us a while to get in and to get organized. And then Lewis had the idea, we'll get Caroline to organize us, and she'll call the meeting and make sure we get in. And this thing began to take, I think we talked and we'd start telling these stories, and we'd get all off track, and we had hours and hours. I thought we had been doing this for 5 years. So it was, when it got to the film part, it was like what we were hoping for is just there to be something to tell people about what happened to us up there. And Carl would always remind us that Juron was there. And I was thinking, I hadn't been to Moorhead in 50 years, and I would think, why would he have to go through all that? Because that's what I remembered. But when I went up there, it was a different world, and I really think a lot about that. We were the first, and it was tough, but it changed everything. The way it looks now is, I think people are friendlier and get along better than they do right down here. I had a fleeting moment where I thought it might not be bad to live up there. So.
Fleeting, though.
It is very encouraging to see Moorhead as it is now. Diversity has quadrupled, quintupled. There are so many different students of color on campus, and there's also the town. The families in town have really grown quite a bit. But I think as you mentioned, the important point was to tell our stories, because there are so many great contributory kinds of things that happened as we told our stories. We talked about our families, we talked about parenting, how important good parenting is, because that led us on our way in terms of education. We talked about the community, how the community worked together to make sure that we were successful as well. We talked about our church, and the fact that how important religion plays in terms of providing us with the essentials for life. All these things made us, as we talk about the word resilient, it made us resilient, and we are able to work with all people, not just from our own culture, but people from all races. And that made it easier for us to be more accepted in that Moorhead setting. Was it difficult at first? Yes, it was. Yes, it was, because as I think as we were talking about being able to go home all the time, we couldn't go home. It was on us. We had to make it. And we made it based on the fact that we had this wonderful background that Rondo gave us.
So I believe that I wasn't there at the beginning when your meetings were starting, but I remember that my Uncle Carl called me and he's like, "Hey man, I've got some important people I need you to meet." And I was like, "Oh, who are these guys?" You know, and he's like, "I've known them for a very long time and I want you to meet them." Because, and he hadn't told me any, about you all going to Moorhead and MSUM. I found that out. I learned from all of you guys through your experiences about that, and I think it really helped me at the time, because I was there sometimes, and I was in the city sometimes, and I was really felt that those meetings really gave me context to what was happening, because a lot of those African American students on campus didn't know that there were black students in the 1960s or 70s. When they come up there, they don't know that at all. And I think that's very important. Like I'm blessed to know that information, and I feel like we needed something to tell their story to more of the youth. And I feel that, when Uncle Carl called me, I was so happy because now my family just got bigger with these gentlemen.
Like I mentioned, it's your turn. So I hope you all have thought about questions. We want to make sure this is an open dialogue, opportunity to ask either all the brothers, or you can have questions for the specific brothers. Like I said, we'll have some microphones that come around, and I'll also repeat your question just to make sure that we have a clear understanding of what's being asked. So don't let your hands all go up at once, but raise them. What do we have here? Anyone? Yay! Awesome. We have a question over here, and we have a microphone coming down. This is perfect, because I really thought I was going to have to pull out some more questions.
Can you share with us what you remember about Hallie Q. Brown's role in early segregated St. Paul and the impact that it had on you as young people?
The question was, can you share the impact of Hallie Q. Brown in early segregated St. Paul and the impact it had on you as young people?
Can I start?
Yes, of course.
When our home was taken, we lived on 926 St. Anthony. My parents owned the property. You saw where they came from. They could not go and get another home outside of the immediate Rondo area. Discrimination was legal at that time. They had no opportunity to go to another part of town. It was illegal for them to do that. And it's hard to put that within the context of today, because now we operate with civil rights laws and rules, but those things didn't exist just as recently as the early 60s. There were still places in St. Paul and in Minneapolis that you couldn't go to because you wouldn't be served. And it was dangerous. We used to ride our bicycles to go fishing in McKeown's Lake, and we used to stay on the main thoroughfare on Dale Street because it was dangerous to go into the neighborhood to go fishing because people would throw rocks at you. So, it's hard to, and I think it's an important part to put the time and place to this and what was going on. Schools were still segregated. The community was still separated, and it was completely different than you would expect.
Hallie Q. Brown was there before we were. And I remember it was down the street from St. Philip's Church where we went to church, and it seems like I always had a cousin working in there somewhere. And it was where you went. They had the camp. If you were going to camp, Hallie had a camp. And I was working with some kids they said were incorrigible. And I knew these kids just needed some money. And they were going to get it any way they wanted to. And Hallie hired me to be their day camp director. And I let those kids be junior counselors. I know it was dangerous. But I'm seeing some of those kids now. They're retiring from good jobs. And all they needed was somebody to pinch that muscle in their shoulder and slap them upside the head. And, but Hallie was always there. Right up until this past year, I see myself going in there, and I just see this new executive director, and since we're talking about Hallie, I want to say that they're in some financial trouble, and I think we can all help.
Well, I remember Hallie Q. Brown, first of all, me being afraid of it because that's where I'd always get my shots. And whenever I saw that building, I was terrorized. It was. But no, seriously, summer camps were the greatest. I really appreciated having to go to summer camp because it really gave me a lot to do. The camps were interesting and educational. And it gave my mother a break and my father a break, but it really was part of my experiences in terms of being a part of a camp and being able to socialize a lot better as well. And I had I think Mr. Galloway is here. His sisters used to take care of me at camp as well. I'm not sure where he is. He's out there someplace. But anyway, his sisters used to take care of me at camp and make sure I didn't get in any trouble. So, but that's what I remember as a child.
I have a couple questions. 796 Concordia. I seen that house on the film. Now it seemed like the back of the house that I seen. Were there? You said that my grandmother was a den mother, my grandmother Griffin, for the Cub Scouts. So was Concordia? Was that a place? 796 was that a place for a lot of different kind of meetings and stuff? Because it seems like it, there was a lot of people there all the time.
I remember my father used to go to the house that to have meetings regarding the railroad. There was a certain period of time where individuals who worked as waiters, dining car waiters, they wanted to improve their situation, and they would go there and work with my father, who was a waiter in charge, so to speak, would teach them the methods of becoming a bar car attendant, how you took care of the money, how you took care of the supplies, how you would reorder the supplies for the car, that sort of thing. They would work together to become better at what it was they were doing, would make more money, that sort of thing. So there were lots of meetings there. There were community meetings too about school desegregation. They would meet at my house. They would meet at that house, that particular house as well. So there's a lot. You're right. There were a lot of meetings there, and Mr. Griffin was an advocate.
Okay. I guess my second question is Hallie Q. Brown. I think I'm a part of that aftermath, and I think Russell said it was kind of dangerous because I was 12 years old. I went to one of those camps, and it was great. We were riding horses, but they gave us a bunch of machetes. They gave, and they told us to, they gave a bunch of 12-year-olds machetes, and they told us to whack our own, to make our own camp space. I'll never forget that. you know. But I think about it now, and I just think about how camps are now, you know. They're not as fun, right? So.
I lived off of Dale and Fuller, so I'm a Rondo baby, but like the newer generation. And I remember when I was younger, I seen Tiger Jack right on St. Anthony, off of you guys know Tiger Jack. He would give out the candy. And I'm just curious if you guys have any like landmarks, whether it's a rec center, a building, like what were some of the places you used to frequent in the old Rondo? I'm curious if it's still here, if it's not there, but I'm curious what you guys used to do in Rondo. Where would you guys hang out at?
So the question is, any old landmarks or just specific places that you all used to hang out and enjoy your time?
You know, certainly Oxford Playground is still there. And we have Bill Peterson was the director then, and was in many ways directed many of our lives through the programming that was available at Oxford Playground. As you know, there are still some other landmarks there, and I want to say that Oxford had organized sports, but it also spurred other activities, alley sports, baseball in Maxfield playgrounds. And the important part that I always think about now with Oxford is that not all of us played on the organized teams, but we did learn discipline as a result of going to Oxford Playground and attempting to make the team and then getting cut by the team. But we learned discipline on that. Some of the other landmarks that are there are the churches that were mentioned, but there's also a landmark that recently that I had thought, there was the old Ebony Lounge, which was a lounge that our parents went to, and then sometimes we went to until we were told to leave because we weren't old enough to be in there. And that's on University and Avon is one that I think that people have yet to identify, and certainly one I think of.
I was thinking also of the Oberboys Club and the Hollow. When I know I should mention this or not. When I was really young, my father used to take me to Jim Williams' bar, and he would give me candy bars. If you remember Jim Williams, anybody out there? Those were some of the areas that I remember mostly. Oh, the credit union, that's correct, yes. The credit union, yeah, yes.
Which was black-owned. And that building is still there on, I guess that's, I guess that's Rondo, and that would be Chatsworth or Milton.
Yeah.
Russell, did you have anything to add, or do you want me to go to the next question?
I would say, though, when you mentioned Mr. Fields' drugstore, Mr. Fields lived across the street from us on St. Anthony, and it was known that when Mr. Fields had a soda fountain and ice cream, and it was said that when I'd come into the drugstore, Mr. Fields would immediately start getting an ice cream cone because he knew I was going to act up. It's a good memory.
All right, 2 more questions. There's one in the back and then one in the center.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Ironically, you guys spoke about Hallie. My name is Benny Roberts. I'm the kid that you were speaking of, who's the new executive director at Hallie. 21 years ago, I didn't know my career was starting, and I worked for Russel Balenger at the Urban League while I was attending Central. And my wife was educated by Dr. Fretwell, who I know somebody on the stage knows very well. And my question for you guys is, what is your hope for the descendants of Rondo, and what will make you proud of it going forward? And my quick follow-up question is, can we play this screening at Halley? Because we need to. But the first question, just in case you didn't hear it, what is your hope for the descendants of Rondo, and what will make you proud of it going forward?
What is your hope for the descendants of Rondo, and what will make you proud of it going forward?
Well, I just want to say that, you know, for a long time we felt like we've been split. And now I look at it as if we've expanded. And we've moved out further and further. But you hear all the time, we're still Rondo. I would like to see that as our young people, as yourself, are taking over some of these places that meant so much to us, that they continue to flourish and everybody get behind them. I can't imagine Hallie Q. Brown not being here.
I'm hoping for and expecting the best that can be available in terms of health and prosperity for all. I am duly concerned about the situations that we're faced with now, currently, you know, the economic and political threats that you have going. I'm concerned about the wars and certainly about the climate. But I have confidence that the young people today will take the steps to ensure that I'm really concerned about young people that are coming. I'm optimistic that the young people today are going to, in neighborhoods today, are going to step forward and continue and begin to take the steps to bring economic justice, to bring resolution to these wars and to this division for the next generation and the next one that are coming, and also to do something to take the steps necessary to avoid this climate change that we're so beginning to see.
As an educator, of course, I'm concerned about education, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to address the needs of all of our students, and making sure that they get the proper education that they need so that they can go on and live more prosperous lives. You know, at this particular point, I know there's a lot of issues that we have and that we have to deal with regarding education, particularly funding. And I'm hoping that our legislatures will start taking a very close look at that and figure out ways where we can better utilize the funds that we have.
So for me, my family is from Rondo, but I was born in Minneapolis. I like to think that I feel like sometimes that was because of the displacement that happened to my family. And I hope that, and I'm glad I'm in this whole project because I found out a lot of roots and connections, and met a lot of great people in this project. And I just hope that we keep everything together because we need to, and we need to, as the youth, we need to keep going as well. Like, we need to do our job. Thank you.
Okay, I've been given a sign that I have to wrap up, so we have one final question.
My name is Dorothy Nins, and when I think of St. Paul, I think of Katie McGuat. And so I just wanted you to speak to her legacy for those in this room who don't know who she is, and what your connection is, your family's connection, if you still have property in Rondo and your family's roots there, are they still there?
Mrs. McGuat was a champion in not just our Rondo community, but here in the city. Her husband Arthur McWatt was my eighth grade teacher. It was they were both educators. Their children are lovely. I lived a block from the McWatts and still do, from their home. And I believe, I know that the street, it's where Dayton turns into Katie McWatt Avenue. She was a woman, a little woman, slender, with the big afro, and she wasn't scared to say what she had to say. She would, when the politicians would come to the neighborhood, she would check them, and she would do it in such a way that you didn't have to come behind her and say anything. She was a powerful woman, and I'll never forget her.
Of course, I knew her also. I knew her, and Mr. McWatt. I also knew her from the St. Paul Urban League, where Katie had worked for many years. As a young teenager, social change advocate, I can recall seeing and being moved by Katie when the restaurant that is now called the Lexington Restaurant refused to serve people of color. Some street work was being done that needed to be done to continue the restaurants going on. And Katie, in the midst of her protest, jumped in the pit and stopped the construction and to bring attention to the issues that were important. Again, this is in the early days when you didn't have the civil rights laws that you have today. You know, this was courageous for her to do that. And I always remember her jumping in the pit, the construction pit, to do that.
And got arrested is what I'm hearing, just to make sure you heard that. What, or did you?
I just remember Katie McWatt from the Urban League. I'm sure she was one of the reasons why I got a job at the Urban League, working in their educational exceptional children area, that department. But she worked a lot with housing, family needs. She was just a go-getter. She really filled the void, so to speak. She knew what was needed and what was necessary, and she was always there, always ready and prepared to move Rondo forward. Just a very energetic woman. I've never seen anybody like her.
Well, that will have to conclude our panel discussion today. Thank you all for your participation. Is someone coming to speak after me, please? Okay, thank you. I do want to say, gentlemen, congratulations. We did it.